Welcome to Beavercreek Rotary. I didn't mean to scare you, Sandy. I am your host and president, Stephen Brown. I'd like to welcome everyone. I'd like to thank our greeters, Brian and Karen Lampton, Eric Marcus for being our ticket master, Mike Zwick, Pete Bells, and Mark Weinstein for our great programs, and Jim and Alex for the website and YouTube. If you guys want to bow your heads for the invocation. Lord, we want to thank you for this day with the fellowship here, and may you bless the food that we receive. I'd like to pray for all the sick and homeless, and those all in Ukraine, Iraq, and all the families affected by that. And we just want to thank you for this opportunity to be together. Amen. Secretary's report, David Cusack.
Our president has a guest.
I do. I have Jessica Sullivan with me today.
Mark Weinstein apparently has a remote guest to be introduced by Mike Zwick.
We have Jay Kinsinger from Cedar Hill University. He's a professor of mechanical engineering.
We had a little bit over 60% attendance today.
All right. Thank you very much. Sergeant at Arms, Don Adams. Brian Lampton. Don Adams.
I bribed the wrong guy.
Actually, let me, just real quickly, there will be some jokes up here. If you can remain in your seats during the whole joke, that'd be great. Thank you.
Apparently you saw them before I started up here. Well, good afternoon. It's good to see everybody. Weather here in Ohio is, who knows? Frostbite one day, sunstroke the next, or you could be blown to Indiana. You just don't know. Well, one of the, I guess, advantages or disadvantages being one of the new members of the board is Stephen's asked me to pass along some relatively bad news. Starting today, this will be our last meeting as a group. Starting next week, we go back to Zoom. Got a couple of you.
Don't listen to that. Yeah.
Speaking of April Fool's jokes, one of the most famous ones was BBC and their famous spaghetti harvest segment. They talked about spaghetti growing on trees in a Swiss region near the Italian border. They showed people sitting down to really eat all of this spaghetti they picked off the trees. They actually had people calling up and trying to figure out where they could find those trees and grow them. There was another April Fool joke that really wasn't April Fool's. It was actually in September, but the farce with Orson Welles and broadcast of War of the Worlds shook everybody up. In the news, a group of 7 major economies agreed Monday to reject Moscow's demand to pay Russian natural gas export in rubles. Since it's worth less than a penny, I can understand why. In what could be an effort to increase viewership for the Academy Awards show, Will Smith smacked Chris Rock during the event. I'm just glad he didn't insult Alec Baldwin's wife.
Like that.
How's it go?
In the State House news, and I'm not sure why he's here, but Ohio top election official says state lawmakers must hold a vote today to push back the May 3rd primary if they want to avoid having to hold a second one in August. So. Okay. For the first 4 basketball tournament here in Dayton, the big Hoopla organization gives out tickets to Dayton area military families. This year, they surpassed over 100,000 tickets that they have donated to that. And this is for Mike Swick. A second grand jury in Texas has decided not to indict Cleveland Browns quarterback Deshaun Watson. Some stupid laws. The curfew for flushing toilets after 10 p.m. is quite strict. Quite a strict regulation in Switzerland. Everybody better do their business before 10 o'clock strikes. So there's a weird law in Ohio. I wish the chief was here for this. That a police officer can bite a dog if they think it will help calm the canine down. There's also a weird law in Washington that states a motorist with criminal intentions that are driving through the city limits of Washington must call the police chief before entering the city. I know that's going to happen. It's illegal in Salem, Oregon to be within 2 feet of a nude dancer. In Quitman, Georgia, chickens are not allowed to cross the road. But in Key West, the chicken could cross the road and nobody is allowed to question their motivation. Driving on the Autobahn requires that drivers follow all traffic laws, including one that if not followed could lead to a hefty fine. And that rule is never run out of gas while driving on the Autobahn. In North Dakota, it's illegal to lie down and fall asleep with your shoes on. Also in North Dakota, beer and pretzels cannot be served at the same time in any bar or restaurant. In Ohio, owners of tigers must notify authorities with 1 hour if the tiger escapes. It's also illegal in Ohio to get a fish drunk. Much for that. This day in history. In 1853, Cincinnati became the first U.S. city to employ full-time professional firefighters. In 1889, the first dishwashing machine was marketed in Chicago. In 1905, SOS first was adopted as a Morse code distress signal by the German government. In 1936, Charles Lucky Luciano was arrested in Arkansas. In 1954, the U.S. Air Force Academy was established.
That's cool.
In 1978, the Bob Newhart Show last aired on NBC. And one of I think is one of the worst mistakes that the U.S. made, and they've made several. They formally transferred the Panama Canal to Panama in 1982. And I've been through that. It cost anywhere from 900 or 900,000 to $1.5 million to go through that thing for each ship. 1986, the world oil prices dropped below $10 a barrel. We could certainly use a little bit of that today. In 1951, Duke beat Kansas for the Blue Devils' first NCAA men's basketball championship title. This weekend, they'll go for their 6th, all of them under Coach K. This will be his 13th Final Four, and his record so far is 1170 and 302. So he's kind of a sentimental favorite, I guess. Also, I always like to give you some useless facts. Maybe you can use at your next party, make yourself, look important, or know something you're talking about. There's a company that turns dead bodies into ocean reefs. Says for those who romanticize a burial at sea, the company Eternal Reefs offers an innovative solution. It mixes the cremated remains of a person with concrete to create a pearl under which loved ones can etch personal messages or mementos. This pearl is then encased in a reef ball and dropped into the ocean. In case you've ever wondered, dolphins always sleep with one eye open. Some unique way they shut down the right side of the left side of the brain, and the right eye stays open, and vice versa. And vacuum cleaners were originally horse-drawn. One of the earliest known vacuum cleaners was so large that it had to be hauled from house to house with a horse-drawn carriage. And if any of you have ever wondered why McDonald's developed a drive-through, it was to serve the military. I think it was in Arizona. Airmen couldn't get out of their car and go into an establishment with their uniform on. So the guy that owned McDonald's said, well, because he was right next to the base, he said, let me do a drive-through. I punched a hole in the wall. Drive-throughs were created. One quarter of all your bones are located in your feet. Any medical people in there? Each foot has 26 bones, which is 52 bones in both feet out of 206. That's 25%. The legal owner of 1/6 of the earth is the Queen of England. There are more living things in a teaspoon of soil than there are people on the earth. And I used to eat dirt too. There weren't always a lot of trees on the earth. And this was something I didn't have any idea of. The earth used to be covered with giant mushrooms. Long before trees overtook the land, earth was covered by giant mushrooms 24 feet tall and 3 feet wide. And the earth is the only place in the solar system where water exists in all 3 states: solid, liquid, and gas. Some of you may think this is good. Excessive body hair is linked to higher IQ. My cousin, it must have been a genius. When I see lovers' names carved into a tree, I don't think it's cute. I just think it's strange that people carry knives to these dates. Marriage is like a deck of cards. In the beginning, you need 2 hearts and a diamond. In the end, you wish you had a club and a spade. Lazy is such an ugly word. I prefer selective participation. I started working out again. I'm doing crunches twice a day now. Captain in the morning and Nestle's in the afternoon. Wouldn't it be great if we could put ourselves in a dryer and come out wrinkle-free and 2 sizes smaller? Don't stress about your eyesight failing as you get older. It's nature's way of protecting you from the shock as you walk past the mirror. Speaking of mirrors, we all know they don't lie. I'm just really glad they don't laugh. You never know how dirty song lyrics are until you hear a child sing them. You also never realize how boring you are until someone asks you what you do for fun. Except for Stephen here. Last night I'd been in bed for 20 minutes and I remembered I only came in the bedroom for a pen. If a bag is not resealable, then it contains only 1 serving. I don't make the rules. The officer asked me to step out of the car. When I did, he said, "You're staggering." And I said, "You're pretty handsome yourself." I was walking in the jungle and saw a lizard on his hind legs telling a joke. I turned to the local tribesman and said, "That lizard is really funny." The trident said, "That's not a lizard. He's a stand-up chameleon." I'd say they were all funny. I'll leave you with a piece of advice. If you're getting angry with someone, think before you talk. If the person is junior to you, count to 10 before you talk. If the person is equal to you, count to 30 before you talk. If the person is your senior, count to 50 before you talk. If the first person is your wife, keep counting, don't talk. So a few finds today. If you've been to the first four, that's $1. If you've ever gotten a fish drunk, that's $1. If you have ever been duped by an April Fool's joke, that's $1. If you have ever run out of gas on the Audubon, that's $1. If you've ever been through the Panama Canal, that's $1. If you've been to the Air Force Academy, that's $1. I know I got at least one there. Steve, happy bucks.
Thank you very much. All right, happy bucks. I'll start off with happy bucks. I just had my birthday and it was awesome. So all my friends were able to make it, and my sister came as well and went to Sueños. If you've never been there before, it's absolutely amazing. And Tender Mercy, which is right underneath it, same owner. So really good time. My other happy buck is that my friend Jess could join today. So Jess works for Dublin City Schools in the district. As you can tell, she's super younger than I am, but she's already become a principal and everything. So now she works, and she convinced Dublin, hey, how about I move out of Columbus and work in Beavercreek? So yeah, pretty amazing. So thank you for making it today. Happy bucks.
I've got a happy buck. Last Saturday, I was blessed with my 4th great grandchild, 7 pounds, 12 ounces, little girl. I named her Colleen, and everybody's doing well.
All right, congratulations.
So most of you know I have a 4-year-old junior. So over the weekend we found out that he actually made the Celtics U-Stick select team.
Ah, nice.
So back to every weekend on the road.
All right. Not on Fridays, though. We'll see you here. Anyone else? Brandon?
I've got 8 for my 8-day-old son, Hunter. It's been very exciting. Dave and I spoke about having a child, and everything he said was right. So I've lost a lot of sleep, but I had a lot of fun. I've got a happy buck for just everyone who's reached out and been awesome and so supportive. So thank you all. And then I have another happy buck because Xavier won the real March Madness tournament yesterday, the NIT, first one since 1958. So you can now ignore the rest of March Madness. And I don't know, breaking from norms here, he told a joke about getting older and not being cool. And I saw one the other day. It said, one day you're cool, the next day you're online reading reviews for birdseed. And that one really hit home for me. So.
Nice. Congratulations again. Anyone else? Oh, Karen?
And I'm no longer the fiance. I'm now officially the wife.
Ah, congratulations. I can't see Brian. Is he smiling?
April Fool.
April. Oh. Anyone else? All right, perfect. Let's do the drawing. Oh, I had the ticket. Last 4, 0, 0, 5, 0. Zero, 0, 5, 0. Oh, here we go. Just a reminder, half of the proceeds go to our annual Christmas baskets.
That was close.
All right, pot grows. We do have a couple of announcements today real quickly. We do have a board meeting following this meeting, so if you want to join, come join. As you can see on here, we still have the Outstanding Community Service Awards. We have 2 people who have been submitted. And where's Jim? When's the last day to?
Next Friday.
Next Friday is the last day to nominate someone for that. So right now we have 2. Would love to have more. So let's see here, Beth Cusack, do you have any announcements for our community
Sure.
service day?
Sure. So I have an update. On April 30th, our Rotary District is participating in a national effort called Rebuilding Together, and it's going to be in the inner city of Dayton. We have 3 projects. We're working on a children's garden, a solar garden, and then we're partnering with the Red Cross to do a program called Sound the Alarm. So some of the homes in the neighborhoods have been identified where they don't have working smoke alarms. So we're going to be going in and replacing those. We need volunteers. So our goal is 150 volunteers, and as of today, we have 25, with a third of those being Beavercreek Rotarians. So thank you for those that signed up. So if you're interested, I've asked our secretary, Mr. Cusack, to send out a link to get email for everybody to sign up. But we really need people to step up and to help out with that project.
That's great. So yeah, so family and friends obviously
Yeah,
invited.
Just make sure
Yeah.
that even if it's a minor, that they have a waiver that's signed and that they have a sign up on there.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Yeah, thanks. Glad to hear that Beavercreek's turnout's so great. So that's great. I did get a text this morning from Gussie. So kickball at Rotary Park starts tomorrow. So they are always looking for volunteers. If you're interested in that, let me know. I believe they start at 9 and they're anywhere from like 9 to I think maybe 12. Is that right? So again, every Saturday morning, kickball at Rotary Park. They're always looking for volunteers. So last but not least, I'd like to invite our president-elect, also the director of the Air Force Marathon, AKA Brandon. Come up here.
I don't think the Air Force Marathon's real and hasn't happened. So.
Yeah, I like your attire today too,
Oh, thank
actually.
you.
So Brandon
Oh, nice.
has got another pennant here for the Paul Fellowship or Paul Harris Fellowship. So he has 3 gyms on here now, which I believe is your 4th, which means he's donated over $4,000 to the Rotary Foundation. So huge thank you. That's amazing.
Every time I tell my friends about it, they're like, "You sure you're not in the cult?" And I'm like, "Legitimate." Thank you.
Yeah. All right, so let me go ahead and invite Mike Zwick up to introduce our speaker today. The mic's broken. I gotta fix
Oh,
it.
that's fine. I don't understand. For years, I never introduced a speaker, and now that I'm not doing programs, I introduce speakers.
Go from one job to the next.
We love it.
I bribed the wrong guy. It's my pleasure to introduce Jim Stevenson and the International Center for Creativity. Mark Weinstein wanted to do this, but he couldn't be here today again. The International Center for Creativity is a Columbus-based think tank and partnership that designs, develops, and delivers innovative curriculum, professional training, and design and creativity consultation for universities, entrepreneurs, artists, and corporations. The ICC has most recently, partnered with Cedarville University to deliver a cutting-edge Bachelor of Arts in Industrial and Innovative Design. Jim's going to talk to us a little bit about that. That sounds pretty exciting. Proving that most great ideas start on a bar napkin, the ICC was conceived in a coffee shop in 2001 in a meeting between Jim Orr, an industrial designer, Tom Belletti, a designer and entrepreneur, and Jim Stevenson, a marketer and entrepreneur. Over coffee that morning, the 3 discussed a gap in the educational marketplace to capture the heart, soul, and imagination of design through inspiring young people with not just artistic talent, but also the vision and integrity to reshape the future of industrial design. Jim, please come tell us your story.
Wow, thank you. That was really embarrassing. Yeah. Thank you. It's an honor to be here. This is really inspiring to me because I found how much my life has improved when I shut the news off and I stopped on my news feed and I started finding community leaders like you that ask these questions of themselves. And it gives me a lot of hope and a lot of promise that there's how many good people there are in the world. Thank you for letting me be a part of your lunch. So yeah, the weather was interesting this morning. I drove down from Columbus, actually close to Dublin. We have the Dublinite. I don't know what they're called, but we'll go with that. Yeah, it's where our facilities are located. I actually work with Christy Benning in your group, and that is one of the most innovative school systems in the country, in my opinion. Incredible things going on there. So you're very fortunate to have a member of that crew. But I got to drive down and see 3 seasons just this morning. But I knew that I still needed to pack my sunglasses when I walked out and it was snowing huge flakes. I've still been in Ohio long enough to know that you pack your sunglasses because it was going to change. So thanks for having me. Yeah, Mark Weinstein asked me to do this, and because Mark's not here, I'm going to greet you in a proper way, not one that he would approve of, but I need OH. All right. So somebody please let Mark know that we got to do that. So when we set out, that napkin story is absolutely true. But what I have to tell you is it wasn't like one of these overnight, oh, here's a great idea, let's go start this. It was like most ideas, you just had to grind on them and grind on them and grind on them until they became something. But we had these things called Crazy Fridays. After we sold our marketing firm, we believed in first who and then what. We liked hanging out together. So we were like, so what are we going to do? Is there what's the next business? And we came up with some spectacularly horrible ideas. Do I need this?
It's up to you.
I don't need this. Okay. I talk with my hands, so I'm worried I'm going to like drop it or toss it. Would it be all right?
Yeah.
You were kind enough to go fix it. Now I'm not using it. So I apologize. But we had these spectacularly horrible ideas that we kept pitching to each other until one day our clients, who we were actually consulting for, told us, why don't you start a school? We're like, no, we're not. We're not academics, we're entrepreneurs, we're capitalists. We like to build things. We're not really interested in academia because it just moved very slowly, and we thought that they were actually the problem, right? And it was because we found some data, and I'll show it to you in a minute, that actually pushed us into getting into higher ed. And we found some fantastic partners over at Cedarville. But real quickly, I wanted to push the wrong button. It's at the top one, the next one. There, that's it. So I'm from Allentown, Pennsylvania, and Billy Joel's actually mostly right. If you haven't listened to the song, it's kind of a sad song about a rusty old town, but it was an incredibly cool place to grow up. I loved it. It was very ethnically diverse. It was a town that had, most of my friends' families were straight off of a boat from somewhere. A lot of them didn't speak English, but let me tell you something. We had the best Italian, Polish, all our restaurants were incredible, and there were no chain restaurants, right? Everybody ate local. It was just the way we did it. There was a McDonald's that was out by the freeway, but nobody ever ate there, right? You went to Geno's instead. That's where you got your burgers and fries. I love growing up that way. I also got my love for American history. I remember going to Sunday school after our church was damaged in a fire. There was a historic church in town that allowed us to meet there while there were renovations being made on ours. I went down to my Sunday school class. I was early, and I'm just kind of kicking around. I'm a kid trying to get in trouble. So I'm in the basement of the church looking around, and I walk in this room, and there's a replica of the Liberty Bell sitting in there. So I go over and read the bronze plaque, and it turns out that was the room where they stored the Liberty Bell during the Revolutionary War. The hair on the back of my neck stood up because all of a sudden it went from being a cool pencil sharpener that I picked up in the gift shop visiting the Independence Hall, and then it became real. I'm like, wait a second, they had to hide it in this basement because the British Army promised to capture it and turn it into cannonballs and level Independence Hall with it. I thought, wow, that got real for me all of a sudden. It wasn't a cartoon anymore. So I fell in love with American history at that time. Great place to work, or great place to grow up as well. We had the Allentown Fair, very different than fairs in Ohio. It's not an agricultural fair. It's a commercial fair where products are launched and you could go get demos and food samples, all this crazy stuff. And some of the most incredible music. They had large touring bands. The year I left, when I was 12 years old, the headliners were Kansas, Supertramp, Chicago, Billy Joel, Daryl Hall and John Oates, and Boston. Wow. Right? And my parents just dropped me off at the gate and said, the concerts are over at 10. We'll be here. Don't screw around. We're leaving at 10:05. Right? And they were serious. I was so glad I grew up in that era. These were my heroes. Right? These were the people that I grew up worshiping as a kid and I wanted to be. And every time Evel Knievel jumped something, I ended up in the hospital because I was out front on my bike trying to replicate some sort of big jump. I am so glad my parents allowed me to break things. We worship at the altar of health and safety now. And tell me, we are not doing our kids any favors. You learn by doing. You learn by making mistakes. One of my friends told me, as he was nuts, Perry Lipowich was his name. Perry would jump off of anything. And I'm like, Perry, you're going to hurt yourself. He goes, hospital food's not that bad, man. That's what he told me. And I started adopting that mentality and saying, man, we got to live. We got to live. So I loved, Steve McQueen and Jim Rockford and Indiana Jones and Evel Knievel. These were my heroes growing up. And I think it explained my high tolerance for risk. I don't mind taking a risk. So what's the worst thing that's going to happen? It's going to fail. Great. You just figured out one way not to do something. That's great. That's an Edisonian principle, right? So just a little bit about me. I love Ohio State. The best thing I took away from Ohio State is I met my wife there. I was a part of the men's glee club. She was the accompanist. It was like dating a girl with 60 older brothers. But that's a long, some other time, if I know you better, I'll tell you the story. I'm really into music. I love having music as a creative outlet. And I'm really into old cars, I like any kind of car as long as it's old, right? I love them all. And my favorite place in the whole world is Maine. That's a little picture of Bar Harbor, Maine. We're dual residency. We go up there and stay as long as we can to recharge batteries. So a little bit about my background. This is why I get out of bed in the morning. It's not my job. Job's just a paycheck. The job of vocation is just that. This is why I get out of bed, right? This is my mission field. These are the people I want to make the biggest impact on right here. So it's Abigail is a nursing student at Ohio State. My wife, Kim, I like to introduce myself as her only mistake, and it's pretty true. She shows good judgment most of the time. The really tall kid in the middle is my 14-year-old, Nelson, who is an 8th grader at Worthington Christian. He is a violinist and came down last night to ask me if I had read there was some podcasts that he wanted me to listen to. And I'm like, oh, great. What's my 14-year-old going to hit me with this? And it was a class on the U.S. Constitution from Hillsdale College. I'm like, oh, yes, this is working out. My son standing next to me, Michael, is working on his commercial pilot's license right now. So there's no greater joy in the world than to fly and get a $100 hamburger with your kid. If you think teaching your kid how to drive is nerve-wracking, imagine sitting in the right seat when your kid's, he was 21 when he got his pilot's license, and listening to him talk to the tower, right? That was a little bit of a gut check, but wow, was it fun. The FAA said he was a pilot, so he's a pilot. This is who runs our house. That's the cat. So I'm here representing the International Center for Creativity. So the reason I wanted to share this is because the ICC was created to solve a problem that existed in school, in how school was structured, thinking that you could get on an assembly line at one end and get off of the assembly line at another end, and somehow one size fit all. It really suits some people, but it does not suit creative kids. It really didn't. So this is a little glimpse. This is our lobby. A couple of our students hanging around in our lobby. This is some of the things that they create. We teach them how to design cars and buildings and products and the like. So anything three-dimensional. So graphic design is anything two-dimensional, the X and the Y axis, flat art, if you will. As soon as you add that Z axis, now it's three-dimensional. It has shape, it has form, it has mass, it has a customer involved, it has a person involved. So that is what we designed. So the car that you drove here, this chair that you're sitting on, the phone in your pocket, everything got touched sooner or later by someone that was a design engineer or an industrial designer, right? The only bad thing about the industrial design career is nobody knows what it is. We're horrible at promoting ourselves, mainly because we're working in the future. Everything we're doing is future speak, so we can't really talk about it. All the stuff that we're contracted to do hasn't happened. It's 5 years in the making. And some of the future is really cool, by the way, and some of it annoys me. Because, well, anyway, we'll have that conversation some other time. Including a building I just got to visit. This is a dream for me in the lower right. This is a rendering that one of our students did of a potential innovation center in the country of Kosovo. We have a partnership with this country. I was just there a week and a half ago. If you're praying for Ukraine, pray harder. It is as bad as you could think it could be. Being 500 miles from Kiev, in a country that had been overrun by Russian war 20 years ago, and I got to see firsthand of the aftermath of what this looks like. They're still rebuilding. The education system is still in ruins. That's why we go over here. But the Albanians are incredible entrepreneurs, and the kids really appreciate getting some education from the U.S. So that's a dream for us, is to be able to impact this region. All right, so our partnership with Cedarville, we're the 5th ranked industrial design program in the country, which is really humbling because it was a napkin idea not that long ago. But it's just been blessed, and we're honored and we're humbled to be able to be partnered with Cedarville. And of all the people that we didn't think was going to take a big chance, it wasn't a private conservative Baptist college in Cedarville, Ohio, that said, sure, we'll let you reinvent a major we've never heard of. But I was so appreciative of the people that did and said, let's see where it goes. Let's see where it goes. Also, as a consulting firm, we've been able to work with some brands that have taught us so much over the years. So almost all of these brands we've touched from an industrial design standpoint, either inside the ICC or on our consultancy side. And we're just blessed and honored to be able to have our students get impacted by these companies. And we also work with a lot of schools. You can see Denison and Cedarville, of course. We work with the Ohio State University Center for Automotive Research Studies, Indiana Wesleyan, the Kosovo Leadership Academy, Worthington Christian Schools, et cetera. There's so many schools that see this problem and know that they've got to reinvent it. So very quickly, why do we exist? Back in 2010, Newsweek published an article called The Creativity Crisis. And that may sound a little overblown, and you say, well, what could be a crisis in the area of creativity? Well, I'll explain it to you. Dr. Paul Torrance was a professor down at the University of Georgia. And back in the 60s, he created this thing called the Torrance tests. They're equivalent of an IQ test, but to measure creativity. So he was fascinated with, in his whole career, in his 50-year career of testing, and he loved outliers. He loved students that were bored with school. They were the ones where he focused a lot of attention, right? And asked them how they thought and analyzed what creativity was. And he said it was inherent in all humans. And I agree with that. For so long, we've always said that creativity belongs to the creatives. That is wrong. That is wrong. If you believe in God and that you're created in the image of God, and God introduced himself as creative on day one, and we're created in his image, then aren't we all creative? At some time, we got told we weren't. And it was by our first critic. Does a kindergartner struggle with a blank sheet of paper and a red crayon? They know what to do, right? When did you quit? When did you quit? It was the first time somebody said, that doesn't look like a dog. That doesn't look like a house. Oh, I must not be good at art. I'm going to quit drawing. It's easier to be a critic than it is to be a creator. And that's why it started getting killed off. So very quickly, his study indicated that creativity scores drop every year that you were in school, right? And in 10 years, you would lose 84% of your creativity quotient. So here's the crisis. 98% of kindergartners score as creative geniuses. And what that's measured on is possibility thinking, meaning can you come up with possibilities? By the time they're 15, only 12% would score as a creative genius. Of the average age of an adult at 31, it's down to 2%. if they would give a paperclip to a 5-year-old and say at a class of kindergartners, they came up with over 500 potential uses for a paperclip. Do you know why? Because they didn't know what a paperclip was. Their mind hadn't been poisoned by saying it can only hold papers together. They didn't care, right? It became all of these wild things. But once you know what it is, you quit being creative. That blank was filled in for you. So here's where the crisis lies. A McKinsey study showed that 84% of senior executives state that creativity and innovation is critical to the futures of their organizations. And LinkedIn found that the #1 skill that after auditing their classifieds, the #1 skill was creative problem solving. So remember the previous graph? We've depleted everybody's creativity at a time when 84% of the world says we need creative problem solving. We looked at that and went, I think we got a mismatch. Maybe we can impact this in the smallest of ways. In our little corner of the world, we're going to try to make an impact. So just as a practical thing for you, here's some creativity killers, and maybe you'll find yourself on this chart. #1, perfectionism. It doesn't exist. Quit chasing it, right? Continuous improvement is better than delayed perfection. Just send it, break something, try it. Who cares? We all want it to be perfect the first time out. It won't be. It won't be. Try it, experiment. Another one is that we're too self-conscious because the world's full of critics. Look at who we have held up right now, whether it's Gordon Ramsay or whether it's America's Got Talent. We celebrate the critics, evaluating people up on the stage, not celebrating the people that are up on stage. We've made stars out of critics, right? We've got to flip that. We've got to flip that and realize that there is no talent in being a critic. And it makes people too self-conscious. Another one is your intellect. If you constantly want to let people know that you're the smartest person in the room, you have lost out on the opportunity of tapping the talent that's in the room. You're just performing for them. So very often, if you think you're the smartest person, you've already lost, right? You need to humble yourself and realize all the different experiences. Can you just stop and think of all the experiences that are in this room right now? All the different backgrounds that are in this room, all the problems that you've solved, all the places that you've traveled. Think about all of that experience, right? And then it needs to be tapped. An inaccurate set of beliefs is another creativity killer. So my kids do this all the time. They'll talk themselves out of doing something. Like, well, I thought about doing this, but this is what's going to happen. I'm like, really? Well, you should play the stock market if you can predict the future with that kind of accuracy. But you can't. You're guessing what could go wrong. You're listening to the wrong set of voices, right? That inaccurate set of beliefs. Another one is chasing fame and feeding the ego. It is a creativity killer because you're only playing to an audience that's just around you. You're not solving a problem. You're just, once again, trying to prop yourself up. So on the flip side of it, I'm not going to leave you with the downers, okay? These are the things that build creativity. When did you stop having imaginative play? Right? These are fun things. If one of your kids or your grandkids or a kid in the neighborhood says, hey, do you want to throw the ball? Or, hey, this happens to me all the time. My son will say, Dad, I just got a new video game. I'm like, oh, a video game, really? You want to have a video game? And then I remembered that Abraham Lincoln's parents complained about him because all he did was read books. That's all he did. He just sat around and read books. He didn't get out there and work in the field like he was supposed to. He sat around and read books. And now we want him to get in the house and read books, right? So at the point is, be interested in what they're interested in. They'll teach you how to play. Find ways to say yes, not the instant I'm home, I'm tired, and I'm going to say no. There'll be a time all too shortly that you won't have that opportunity. If they want to hang out with you, soak it in, right? Soak it in. Passion, have passion for something. If you're not passionate about it, other people won't be passionate about it. Whatever that thing is that you can't get enough of. And I've got a bunch of them for me. I'm into Civil War history. I love Civil War history. I'm into cars, I like music. I like all sorts of stuff. And I skip around and people tell me, oh, you're a jack of all trades. You're a master of none. I'm like, yeah, but I'm happy, right? This is what I like doing. This is what feeds my creativity. Why do I have to be good at only one thing? Where'd that come from? I don't know where that came from, but it needs to go back, wherever it was. Active wondering is not a bad thing. I feel bad for my kids today because of how much stimulus is in their life, right? They have digital dementia. They're so distracted with the next notification on their phones. We won't let them take them into their bedrooms. You're not allowed to. Well, I need it for an alarm. Yeah, I got an alarm. Or I'll loan me one. Yeah, well, I need it for the negative. You don't need it at all. My biggest mistake in the world was buying them smartphones. It's making them dumb, right? It's just giving them something that they're another addiction. You're addicted to the dopamine that you get from the instant gratification of scanning and scrolling pictures. I feel so sorry for our kids that have to deal with things I never had to deal with when it came to distractions. So we go Amish every once in a while. I shut the power off. Oops, squirrel must have chewed through the power line. I shut the power off. They're like, that's weird. The Smith's power's on. I'm like, well, I don't know what to tell you. Right? That worked up until they were about 8 or 9. And then they're like, wait a second. Wait a second. Do yourself a favor. Go camping. Cut the technology off. Force them to sit down and talk to you. And then when they say, read me a story, say, no, you tell me one. I'm going to start it for you. There was this huge fish named Oscar. You finish it. Right? Let them tell you a story. Solitude. Solitude can be a good thing. It can be a bad thing. If you don't get much of it, you desperately need it. If you get too much of it, that could be a negative as well. But try to have that windshield time with the radio off. The phone in the glove box. Active wondering, some solitude. Intuition, trust your gut. Gut's there for a reason. Some believers would say, you know, that's that still small voice that you hear that urges you along. Listen to that voice, not the noisiest ones, but listen to the softest voice, the quiet voice. You know what the word busy stands for some Christian friends told me this. They said it's burdened under Satan's yoke. You're so burdened that you can't hear the still small voice. Right? And that small voice is an urging to go in the right direction. So if you feel overwhelmed by your schedule and those sorts of things, schedule time of quiet and solitude. Right? Be open to experiences. I'm really bad at this. I'm really bad at this because I want to be good at something early on, right? But I will say, I think I got to play this course maybe about 15 years ago at an outing. I was going to go look for some of my golf balls because I left a lot of them out here. I didn't play. It's a 7,000-yard course, I think. I think I elongated it by taking a lot of diagonals back and forth. I think I played about 8,500 yards of it. But be open to experiences even when you're going to be bad at them, right? Try playing worst ball sometime. Guess what happens? All of a sudden, you start coaching the person that needs the coaching as opposed to, look at me, I can outdrive you all. Play worst ball sometime. Be mindful and in the moment. Here's another creativity opportunity for you. There's too many people at the beach thinking about the office. There's too many people at the office thinking about the beach. Be happy where you are and try to remember where you are and be in that moment. Having sensitivity and empathy for others. I have a daughter that has a radar device. She's constantly scanning the room for somebody that's having a bad day. I don't have that radar. I'm oblivious to it. I have to, my wife and my daughter will start talking about, oh, did you hear about so-and-so? Yeah, they had, and they get into their whole life story. And I'm like, what are you talking about? How did you know that? Right? It's because they're sensitive and they have empathy for other people. It's the only way you ever solve problems for people is having empathy for them. Remember that adversity can be an advantage. Our greatest generation taught us that, right? In that they not only defeated fascism, but they came home and created the greatest country in the world. It was an incredible adversity turned into opportunity. So thank you if you served. Don't be afraid to think differently. If you're running into a brick wall, stop. Right? Turn left, turn right, go backwards. Sometimes it's faster to go backwards. Ohio State taught me this. The fastest way to North Campus was the South bus. The South Campus bus got the North Campus before the North Campus bus did. Took me a while to figure. An upperclassman told me that when I was a freshman because I had classes on West Campus. He's like, don't ever get on the north bus. You get stuck in this and this and this and this. If you want to get there, take the south bus. I thought he was punking me, right? Because that's fun. But he wasn't. He was right. Sometimes you have to go the opposite direction to get where you want to go. Really quickly, I'm not going to pretend like anybody can even read this, but I wanted to show you there is a process to innovation and creativity. And it's a design thinking process that allows, and we do this for all of our clients, that we go in and do a problem brief and ask, is this a problem we're solving? Right? If we do solve this problem, what's at stake? Let's validate the problem. That's the general issue. And then what we do is fall in love with the problem and suspend ideation for education. Let's learn more about the problem. Let's dig so deep into it. There isn't anything about this subject that we don't know, long before we ever start coming up with concepts. So we go from a very general problem to over here in the middle, we have much more of a specific problem that we're trying to zero in on, right? And then once we have that specific problem, we start developing concepts, iterating, delivering a solution, and then we start talking about the great art of storytelling, which is being able to communicate your findings way over here on the other side with a specific solution. So I would love to tell you that creativity and innovation is a straight line. It is not. It is a mess. It's like my Christmas lights when I pull them out. It looks like this, right? It goes all over the place. And just remember that Thomas Edison was an entrepreneur, not a scientist. That changed my thinking because he looked for people's needs first, thought about how can I monetize them, and then went and started inventing, right? He is a model of what, if today, if he was still practicing, he would be an industrial designer, right? Because he said that he brought God's greatest gifts to people. You think about what he invented was light, right? Which was a free gift. But he brought light, he brought sound in the form of the phonograph. There was no recorded music before Edison. It's hard to think that a song only existed live. You only heard it once and then it vanished. And then the combination of the two, moving pictures and sound, a replication of our lives. Right? So he brought those greatest gifts and he turned them into monetizable products. All right, so that is about as fast as I can go through an overview. I don't know if we have time for any questions or comments. About 10 minutes. I do want to wrap up and say I'm really just so glad that Jay Kinsinger's in the room. Jay is a designer stuck in an engineering degree. I say it because he's an incredible mechanical engineer. He also has his master's in biomedical engineering. There isn't anything this guy can't take apart and put back together, but he is so creative. And he has such a good mind in communicating with students. We share Jay with the engineering department at Cedarville, and he comes to the ICC as much as we can get him to talk to our designers about understanding how to communicate their ideas, whether it's digitally through some software or whether it's preparing things for manufacturing, those sorts of things. So just thanks, Jay, for coming over here. And hanging out with us as well. You need to check out his company, Sojourn Cyclery. Sojourn Cyclery is one of the coolest things I've ever seen. These are wooden e-bikes. These are bicycles made out of wood that are powered by batteries. They are so comfortable to ride because the wood naturally absorbs vibrations. And he was featured in Rolls-Royce's, what was it called? Book of, yeah, the Rolls-Royce every year picks products that they think are beautiful and excellently executed. And they picked Sojourn Cyclery. Right? And we're humbled to be able to impact design a little bit in his world. He also got to do a bike building workshop at Apple and has been on PBS's. There was a woodworking show that you were featured on as well. So he'll sign autographs afterwards if you want to see Jay. So thanks for wandering over. Any questions or comments? Was there anything that stuck out from that big ramble that I just gave you? Maybe something that's that you've heard up there, or something that you'd like to chastise me for saying something that you don't agree with. I'm okay with that too.
So
Sir.
how do you get involved with the ICC? If I have a high school student that is interested in going to college, or what's the transition?
Yeah, so come and visit. So really first steps are walk through and see if they can picture themselves being there, right? And say, is this an industry or a space that you can see yourself? Because sometimes students will look at mechanical engineering and say, I could do it, but I want to be more creative. If they've got a big box of Lego under their bed, right? If you've caught them taking the vacuum cleaner apart, and if you found that they're interested in lots of things like music and sports and photography and architecture, they may be an industrial designer, because that whole Renaissance concept of being good at a lot of things is usually a DNA marker of someone that might be good in industrial design. But I would encourage you to, our website is iccreativity.com, and or hit Mark Weinstein. He knows how to find me as well. But come up and visit the studio and walk around and see if anything resonates. And that I steal a line from my son's high school counselor. I think we put too much pressure on kids about college. I think we do. First off, it's not for everybody, right? I just don't think it is. One, two, let's celebrate what they're interested in, because that's where they're going to put their passions, right? And three, the question isn't, so what are you going to do for the rest of your life? Let's be honest, aren't we still figuring that out? I know I am. I'm still figuring it out. I think a good question is, what are you interested in enough that you could see yourself doing it for the next 4 years? Because how many of us are working outside of our majors? I know I am. Yeah, there's a lot of us around the room. College teaches you how to think and how to learn, not necessarily a vocation, right? Where you take it's up to you after that. But yeah, always welcome for tours. So, yes, sir.
Challenge that I see is that my grandson, for example, he gets a screwdriver, just tears things apart, and I've got to fix it. But that's not the problem. The problem is he still has to pass the test in school.
Isn't that the truth?
So despite his creativity at home doing things, he's got to pass the test. And
That's right.
how do you say that without saying that?
You've gotten to the real heart of the issue. Is how do we measure it? How do we reward it? And how do we celebrate it? I think COVID did this. It was an awful thing in so many ways, but it also accelerated some other things. And this is one of them. Because all of a sudden companies are looking at ACTs and SATs and going, meh, I'm not sure they matter as much as we used to think. And then they come out and say, was it Google and a couple of other ones that said, hey, here's a list of Credly classes. You can go online and take those for $15 and we'll hire you at $20 an hour, right? Like it's happening very quickly. My own personal prediction is that the 4-year degree is going to become a 3-year degree. The senior year in high school is becoming the freshman year of college. The free market is already deciding that, right? Parents are already navigating it and going, come on, this has gotten silly. We're not sure we're going to pay all that money for that. Let's figure out how to get dual enrollment. Let's figure out how to make our tax dollars work better. But we are not there yet. To what you're describing, we've got to get there. Because a test, we get asked all the time, how do you screen? Is an entrance exam? I have no idea. I just sit down and start talking to them. If they're teachable and they want to give it a go, I'm in. I love a good C+ student. Sorry, parents. But here's the reality. None of us are as fast as we think we were. None of us were as good looking as we thought we were. None of us were as good in school as we thought we were. But here we are busting the chops of our kids who are taking much harder courses than we took. Right? What they're doing in the 7th grade, I wasn't doing until the 9th grade, right? So I think we got to give them a break. Personally, I think we put so much pressure on them that they're pulling back. Man, I don't want to be part of this. Yeah.
Where does all the power come from to handle the electric cars of the future? We're hearing about the batteries, what we need to be doing in order to have more places to hook up these electric cars. I don't hear a lot of conversation about what's the volume of electric energy that's going to be needed
Right.
to handle these automobiles, and where will that come from?
Yep.
Given the politically correct things you can't do today.
What an incredibly complex conversation.
Yeah.
What I'd really love to see, however, is that personally, I think the Germans build pretty good cars, right? I think their engineering's pretty sound. Well, the German Automotive Manufacturing Union, which includes Audi, BMW, Mercedes, have told the European Union, we are not on board with your 2035 banning of internal combustion engine because it's rubbish. The engineers have said the energy expelled to create the vehicle is still coming from coal, it's still coming from nuclear, it's still coming from all those sources. What they've said is we will continue to develop electric cars that may be better for certain purposes. However, to ban something that we continuously get better and better at, which is reducing emissions and maximizing efficiency, make no sense. So they are the first automotive manufacturing union to say, nobody asked the engineers. All of a sudden, it became this rush to a conclusion without a strategy. Because really, a battery is a storage device, not an originator of energy. It stores energy. So if you think about how efficient is an internal combustion engine, when you have the power plant on board, there's zero transmission loss from where the energy is created and where the drive wheels it's applied to. So from an operational efficiency standpoint, they're incredibly efficient. And their question has been, if carbon is the problem, let's focus on carbon. Let's not jump to the tactic and let the tactic wag the tail wag the dog. So I think there's huge momentum around the development and research of vehicles. The bottom line is that the Department of Transportation should be doing this research, but they're having the manufacturers do it for them.
Perfect. Yeah.
Oh, we have one more question. Do you have time?
I just wanted to say thank you
Oh, no, thank
for
you.
putting out the message you're putting, and I wish every parent could hear it. Absolutely.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. That was very interesting. Actually found out, I guess, Jess at Dublin City Schools has worked with you guys before. So per our tradition, we always donate a book to the Greene County Library. This one is called Tech Lab, Awesome Builds for Smart Thinkers. So we'll have you sign this and it'll go to the Greene County Library.
Love it, thank you.
Anything else before we go to the club? Just a reminder, we do have a board meeting after this meeting, so you're more than welcome to join. But let's stand for the pledge. Would you like to lead us?
I'd love to. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Yes.